You try to be kind. You listen carefully when people talk to you. You forgive easily. You try to understand others, even when they misunderstand you. You choose patience instead of anger, silence instead of arguments, compassion instead of judgment. And yet, something strange keeps happening. You are often the one who ends up hurt. You are the one who gives more time, more attention, more emotional energy. But very few people seem to notice how much you give. Slowly, a quiet question begins to form in your mind. Why does being a good person sometimes feel like a burden? Why do kind people often feel the most exhausted? Why does caring deeply about others sometimes lead to loneliness? To understand this, we need to look deeper into human psychology. Because kindness is not just a moral choice, it is deeply connected to how the human brain processes relationships, emotions, and social signals. Some people are naturally more sensitive to emotions than others. Their minds are highly aware of the emotional atmosphere around them. They notice when someone is uncomfortable. They notice when someone's voice becomes quieter. They notice tension in a room even before anyone says a word. Psychologists describe this as high emotional sensitivity. Your brain is constantly scanning the environment for emotional information. A small pause in conversation, a slight change in someone's tone, a brief expression of disappointment. Your brain detects these signals almost automatically, and when it does, another system inside your brain becomes active. This system is known as mirror neurons. Mirror neurons allow humans to emotionally understand each other. When you see someone smile, your brain reflects that emotion. When you see someone suffer, your brain activates similar emotional pathways. It is almost as if your mind briefly experiences a small version of what the other person feels. This is why empathy feels so powerful. But it also explains why empathy can become emotionally exhausting. Because when your brain constantly mirrors the emotions of others, it begins to carry emotional weight that was never originally yours. And when your brain detects someone else's pain, it does something very interesting. It begins searching for ways to reduce that pain. Your mind wants to help. You offer advice. You listen longer than anyone else. You sacrifice your time to support people. And when you help someone feel better, your brain rewards you. It releases dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical associated with reward and satisfaction. It creates a sense of meaning. It makes helping others feel emotionally fulfilling. Because of this reward system, your brain learns something important. Helping others feels good, so your brain encourages you to repeat that behavior again and again. And over time, kindness becomes part of your identity. But human behavior contains another psychological pattern. People naturally adapt to consistent behavior. When someone is always patient, people start expecting patience. When someone is always supportive, people start depending on that support. Not always intentionally, not always with bad intentions, but expectations quietly grow. People begin sharing their problems with you more frequently. They lean on your emotional stability. They trust that you will always listen. And because you care deeply, you continue giving. More attention, more understanding, more emotional energy. But the human brain has limits. Your mind has something psychologists sometimes called emotional bandwidth. Just like a computer can only process a certain amount of information at once, your brain can only process a limited amount of emotional stress. Every conversation where you carry someone else's worries uses part of that energy. Every time you try to comfort someone, your brain invests mental resources. When this happens repeatedly, your emotional energy slowly decreases, and eventually, something changes inside you. You begin feeling drained, not physically tired, but mentally heavy. This feeling is often described as empathy fatigue. Your brain has been absorbing emotional signals for too long without enough recovery. And when this happens, many kind people start questioning themselves. Maybe I'm too soft. Maybe I care too much. Maybe people take advantage of me. But the truth is far more complex. The problem is not kindness itself. The problem is kindness without protection. In personality psychology, kindness is strongly related to a trait called agreeableness. Agreeable people value cooperation and emotional harmony. They avoid unnecessary conflict. They prioritize understanding over winning arguments. This personality trait plays an essential role in human relationships. Without agreeable individuals, trust and cooperation would be much weaker in society. But every psychological strength contains a potential weakness. When agreeableness exists without boundaries, it can slowly transform into self-neglect. You begin prioritizing everyone else's comfort over your own emotional needs. You stay silent when something bothers you. You avoid expressing disappointment. You try to keep everyone around you happy. And slowly, the brain begins forming a dangerous belief. It begins associating your value with how much you give to others. Instead of believing that you are valuable simply because you exist, your brain begins believing you must constantly prove your worth through kindness. This belief creates a subtle emotional trap, because once your self-worth becomes connected to helping others, it becomes extremely difficult to stop. You feel guilty when you rest. You feel uncomfortable when you decline a request. You feel responsible for maintaining other people's happiness. But emotions are not objects that can be carried. Every human being is responsible for their own emotional world. Healthy empathy means understanding someone's feelings. Unhealthy empathy means absorbing them. Imagine emotions like weather. Sometimes people around you are experiencing storms. They may feel frustrated. They may feel anxious. They may feel overwhelmed. Empathy allows you to notice that storm, but responsibility does not mean standing in the rain. You can acknowledge the storm without becoming soaked by it. This is where psychological boundaries become important. Many people imagine boundaries as something harsh, but in reality, boundaries are quiet. They exist in simple moments of awareness, a pause before saying yes, a moment where you ask yourself a question. Do I truly have the emotional energy for this right now? That pause allows your brain to shift from automatic reaction to conscious decision. Because empathy is fast, it reacts instantly, but awareness is slower. And in that slower moment, healthier choices become possible. Another shift involves redefining kindness. Many people believe kindness means always accommodating others, but true kindness includes honesty. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is allow someone to face their own struggles. When people solve their own problems, their brains develop resilience. They become stronger. They learn confidence. But when someone constantly rescues them, their growth stops. So kindness is not about carrying everyone. It is about supporting people without losing yourself. And there is one simple mental image that captures this entire idea. Imagine your kindness as a candle. A candle exists to give light. Its purpose is to brighten the darkness around it. But if everyone takes pieces of that flame without protection, the candle eventually burns out. The goal is not to hide your kindness. The goal is to protect it. Boundaries are like glass around the candle. They allow the light to shine while protecting the flame. Without that protection, even the brightest candle fades quickly. But with protection, it can continue giving light for a very long time. So if you are someone who feels deeply, someone who listens patiently, someone who often carries emotional weight for others, remember this: your kindness is not a weakness. Your empathy is not a flaw. Your brain simply developed a powerful ability to understand human emotions, and the world genuinely needs people who can do that. But even the most compassionate mind needs space to rest. You were never meant to carry everyone. You were meant to shine. And when you learn to protect your emotional energy, your kindness becomes something different, something calm, something balanced, something quietly powerful, not something that drains you, but something that lasts.